This is Miss Lizzie, and I want to welcome you to the Queen Lizzie podcast. Together, we will go through the history of Rosewood, Florida, and watch as the once prosperous town rises out of the bloodshed, fire, and ash to reveal the people, the memory, and the legacy of Rosewood. Watch every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, or listen to our story on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Hello, everybody. I am Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, representing not only the Rosewood Foundation, but the personal testimonies and history of cherished friends and family. You are now watching the Queen Lizzie podcast. Today, we're talking with Susan Bottcher. Welcome, Susan Bottcher, to the Queen Lizzie podcast.
Thank you, Miss Lizzie, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate being invited to this. I am a longtime fan of yours. I so love and respect everything that you've done over the decades for our community. So it really is an honor for me to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor for me to have you on my podcast because today we have a very important message. Mm-hmm. Voting is my second life. Mm-hmm. I knew about voting before I was old enough to understand the word voting, but my mom made certain we voted and we became aware of the challenges, mm-hmm. The payoff, the benefits, I should say, the importance of voting, because she always let us know, if you don't vote, she would say to us, what are you living for? Mm-hmm. It's your privilege. Mm-hmm. People died because they could not vote. Mm-hmm. So voting, I am always happy to talk about it. I'm always happy to work. And you're here today to explain to us or to share with us. And I'll let you tell us what you're going to talk about. Okay?
Okay. And I agree with you about the importance of voting, and this is something, particularly for the Black community, but also for women in general, because it's been just 124 years since we've had the right to vote. And of course, the Black community didn't get that right until much later than that. Yes. And so it is important to continue to hold it very, very dear. And so that's part of what motivates me to do the kind of political activism work that I do. And so 2 years ago in 2022, on the ballot in Alachua County, for all voters in Alachua County, was a referendum that was placed there, not by the citizens. Citizens didn't ask for this. This was placed on by the local Republican legislature that said, we're going to put a referendum on the ballot in Alachua County that asks people whether they want to change county commission elections from at-large to single-member districts. And so let me kind of define those two terms. What at-large means is, as a voter, when you get your ballot in Alachua County to vote for county commissioners, you usually get to vote for either 2 county commissioners at one time or 3. It depends. It rotates every other year. Which county commission seats are up for election, re-election, depends on if there's an incumbent or not. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And so for decades in Alachua County, everybody in Alachua County had an opportunity to vote for any county commission candidate. Didn't matter what district you lived in. Everybody got to vote. That was the at-large method of voting for county commissioners. It's how you vote for school board right now. And so that's how it had been done for decades. Mm-hmm. But this referendum that was, in my words, forced upon Alachua County, because again, the citizens did not ask for this. Okay. In fact, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. In fact, over probably the last 20 years, if not longer, the issue of single-member districts came up. And it came up in county commission meetings. It came up in their charter review commissions, and that's where every 10 years the county reviews its charter, and its charter is like its own constitution. And so what they would do is they would discuss whether or not they wanted to change from at-large voting for county commissioners to single-member district. And every time it never got the traction, there was not the interest, so it was voted down and it was never implemented until 2022 when the state legislature forced onto the Alachua County ballot a referendum that said, do you want to vote for single-member districts? And what that means is you only vote for a candidate that lives in that represents the district you are registered to vote in, that you live in. Unfortunately, the people behind the campaign to push this were not at all honest in how they presented it.
Okay.
They tied it to these phrases and touch tones and emotions that are exactly what you talked about, Lizzie, in your introduction, and that is the importance for people to vote, why we fought for voting, why,
Yes.
Particularly, again, in the Black community.
Exactly.
And so they tied to their campaign things like, and this was on their mailers, that this would end racism, that this increases your voice, that this will, expand democracy.
Shut down democracy.
And that's exactly what happened. So a lot of people believed what they were being told,
Yes.
and so they voted for it, and so it passed. Now, the good news is it didn't pass by a lot.
Right.
It did not pass by a lot, so it's not like it was a landslide. But anyway, so it passed. What that means is now, when you get your ballot, if you're an Alachua County voter, when you get your ballot in August, there are 3 county commission seats that are up. All 3 have incumbents in them. And so, I think all 3 have challengers too. I'm not quite sure. I haven't checked the files yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I live in District 1.
Correct. Yes.
I can only vote for the candidates
In District 1. That is correct. There are, this time in 2024,
Although the District 2, you said?
Districts
candidate?
1, 3, and 5 all have
So-
candidates.
So only the District 3 voters can vote in District 3?
Correct.
Not District 1 also?
Correct.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Yes. And so explain to me how that increases your voice. You only get to vote for 1 seat. You don't get to
Exactly.
vote for all 3.
Okay.
And worse, for people who live in Districts 2, County Commission Districts 2 and 4, they're not going to have a County Commission race on their ballot. They don't get to vote for anybody.
Oh, my God. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Democracy, right?
Well, and this is what they're saying.
I know this is what
they're
they're
saying.
saying.
They're saying, in fact, on their mailer, it said, "Don't let them take away our voice." Well, in District 2 and 4
Four.
this year, you don't have a voice in the
Voice.
county commission
Silence.
elections.
Exactly. And the first time I heard single district, I didn't know what they meant.
Right.
And I didn't know, and I'm supposed to be educated. I know there were other people
Yes.
that didn't know.
Yes.
But I'm grateful for you for being here today to explain to us what to expect.
Well, thank you. And I think it's really important for us to start
is.
talking to people and letting them, giving them the opportunity to get better educated on this because, the old saying, the wool was pulled over their eyes.
Exactly.
They were told, they were sold a bill of goods, and that's not what they're going to get. They're not getting more democracy. They're not getting more of a voice. Their voices are actually being diminished because I know that I would like to be able to vote for all 3 seats,
Exactly.
but I can't. I live in one district that will have somebody on the ballot. We'll have, that race on the ballot, but I only get to vote for that one race.
race.
I don't get to vote for all 3. And so what we want to do is we want to try to repeal this and return to at-large districts.
I like that. We appreciate that. I'm speaking for the majority. I think we would appreciate this because what's the purpose of voting for just one candidate, one district? What is it called? One
It's single-member
Single
district
member district.
versus at-large. Yeah. And
Yes.
so just keeping, kind of the parallel is with the county, or excuse me, with the school board, where, when there's 2 or 3 seats up for school board, you
Yes.
get to vote for all of them regardless of where you live.
Exactly.
You're a registered voter in Alachua
Yes.
County, and your voice is heard throughout the entire county.
And that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be. Yes. Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this when they, as you say, when they get that vote, that ballot in August, and they will discover that, oh, you can only vote for single member district,
Yeah.
your district.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Either you only vote for one seat, or you vote for 0. You don't get to vote for any. Yeah, people, there's going to be a lot of people that are saying, wait, I didn't realize that this is what I voted for when I voted for this back in 2022.
Exactly.
I didn't understand. They told me my voice would be amplified and elevated, and actually my voice has been cut off. So we are working to get a referendum on the November ballot, and again, this is citizen-driven. Get a referendum on the ballot in November that would overturn or repeal, whichever word you want to use, single-member districts and return to at-large voting.
I understand, and I see on this flyer, this handout, wherein they have the NAACP logo. Was it approved by the NAACP?
It was not. It was not. And that was something that came very late in the campaign. And when the Alachua County NAACP saw that their logo was being used on the mailers that were promoting single-member districts, and that logo was being used without the NAACP's permission, they were, as you can imagine, they were furious. And so they contacted lawyers, and I believe even the state NAACP got involved. They issued a cease and desist letter. But by the time those things happened, it was pretty much election day. Because what these people did with this dishonest campaign was they waited until the last minute
To send it out.
to send this out
Okay.
and to put this out there to give the impression that the NAACP supported the 2022 referendum, when in fact they did not.
Oh, my God. This is really bad. It's really bad. Did y'all hear?
Yeah.
And Chuck Chestnut, they have his picture and
Rodney Long.
Rodney Long. Okay,
Yes.
with comments.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That does not represent, comments that do not represent them. And who
Right.
they
And
are.
so what they did, what they did with this is these are comments that both, at the time, City Commissioner, I think he was a City Commissioner at the time, Chuck Chestnut.
Yes.
And Rodney, I think Rodney might have been,
County?
I can't remember, I can't remember exactly the timeline
Yes.
for both of their, years of service on the city and the county. But the quotes that they put on this mailer, on this dishonest mailer, were taken from like 20, 30 years ago, when there was a discussion pertinent to the city commission
Okay.
about single-member districts versus at-large.
Okay.
And the city does things completely different. There is no parallel between how the city does it and how it impacts people's representation versus what had been the way it was for decades with the county. And the problem is that the people behind these dishonest mailers understand that. They understand that this is very wonky, it's very complicated. Most people, I call them normal people. They're living their lives. They're not getting into the weeds of this kind of political, strategic stuff. And so they took advantage of that. And that's why they put Chuck Chestnut's picture on here. That's why they put Rodney Long's picture on here without their permission.
Wow.
And there was a press conference that was held during the 2022 election season when these mailers came out. And again, it was very close to Election Day, but there was a press conference. I attended that press conference. I was there, and I heard and saw both of these men speak out against the single-member districts. But by then, again, it was too late. It was close to Election Day. People had already started voting by mail and voting early. So the damage had been done.
Had been done, and this was all created by the Republican Party.
Yeah, basically the Republican Party.
Yeah,
They didn't. Their name isn't on it. They use this other name called the Social Justice PAC. But when you try to trace back, because if you go on to again, this is the really wonky, detailed stuff that only political nerds like me get into. So I don't expect any of your listeners to really follow up on this. But on the the Florida Division of Elections website,
yes,
there's a link where you can look up the different PACs and 501c4s and political action committees, and you can see who runs them and where their money comes from. And the Social Justice PAC that sent these mailers out and spearheaded this campaign to the tune of at least $250,000.
Wow.
It's based in Tallahassee.
Okay.
And some of their bigger contributors, again, are shadowy groups that you can't trace who they are. You don't really know where the money's coming from, but hundreds of thousands of dollars went into this.
Okay.
But we do know that the people running these PACs are based here in Alachua County.
Okay.
And they are tied directly with the local Republican Party. The Alachua County Republican Party. Yes.
Okay. All right. It's about time for our first half. We are going to head to a quick break, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
My name is Lizzie Robinson Jenkins. I am the president and founder of the Real Rosewood Foundation, established 2003 in Archer, Florida. Years ago, in a little town called Rosewood, Florida, there was a massacre. Several people were killed, all because of guns, violence, disrespect. We cannot allow gun violence to take out our young kids. We're coming together. We're going to work together, and we are going to put guns on the run. GNV. Welcome back to Queen Lizzie Podcast, brought to you weekly from the Steve Spurrier Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We are here with Susan Bottcher. The Queen Lizzie Podcast is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union, live from the Meldon Law Gator Studios at Spurrier Gridiron Grill. A special thanks to Greg Bradley, Allstate Insurance. Okay, so Susan, we are back. I have enjoyed the first half of our show. Thanks for the education on single member districting or district.
It's single member districts, yes,
Okay.
versus at large districts. And
Okay.
so these are all those wonky terms that
I
most
know.
people, like I said, I call them normal people.
Yes.
Most normal people don't pay that close attention to.
Exactly.
And again, that's why, the forces of, nefarious intent, shall I say, they like to take advantage of the fact that most people are not familiar with these terms.
I know. And they have just added and added and added. And you were going to say something or mention something to us about
On tomorrow's? Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
About tomorrow.
Right. So we're recording this on Monday.
Today, yeah.
Today is Monday. And tomorrow, at the county commission meeting on Tuesday, a group of us grassroots activists, and it's a diverse group of people, are going to show up at the county commission meeting
Yes.
and ask them to place on the November ballot a referendum for us to have an opportunity for the people to vote on whether or not we want to repeal or overturn single-member districts.
Okay.
And there are different ways, and what this is amending the county charter. And in order to amend the county charter, there's different ways to do it. One of them is going to that county commission and saying, please put a referendum on the ballot. That's one way. Another way is collecting signatures on petitions. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of volunteers. It's more efficient for us to just go to our elected officials and say, we want you to do this.
Okay.
And if they're going to listen to their constituents, then they hopefully will do what we're asking them to do. The third way to get get a referendum that would amend the county charter is the way that the single member districts thing was done. And that is, a couple people went to Representative Chuck Clemens and said, we want you to put a referendum on the Alachua County ballot that would implement single member districts. And so that's how that was done in 2022.
Did he have the authority to do that, to make that decision?
Yes,
He
yes.
did?
What they do is they basically write a local bill,
Okay.
and it goes through a certain process up in Tallahassee.
Gotcha.
And so we don't have a chance to go up and talk to the committees that are hearing this because, we're not being told when these things are being considered.
Okay.
It was all, very quiet, very under the radar. And so when people did find out about it, there were calls and emails, and there were visits up to these committees, by a small group of people, and they did not listen to us, and they said, nope, we're putting it on the ballot anyway because, and this is an important, phrase, let the people vote on it, let the people decide.
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing on the county level, is a group of us, we're going to probably have at least half a dozen people there, maybe twice that many people.
Okay.
In the meantime, other people are emailing and calling the county commissioners to say, please put a referendum on the November ballot that would overturn or repeal single-member districts and restore at-large districts. And again, our main argument is, again, let the people decide on this. Last time we were sold a bill of goods. We had the wool pulled over our eyes. This time we want a long, honest campaign so that we can educate the voters and let them know what this means and the impact on their voice here in Alachua County will be.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. And you all may go back or come back or go to my podcast. It is found on the Real Rosewood Foundation, like rosewoodflorida.com. And while you are there, you may order. Yes, I am promoting my books. I have a couple of books on the website. You may make a donation. You may sign. What you may sign, don't remember. But anyway, you may order the book. Oh, I was about to say you may become a member. And make sure you listen to this podcast, follow it, subscribe to it, and tell your friends about it. If they want to hear our story, they can go to rosewoodflorida.com. And hopefully, don't know if I'm going to be present tomorrow at the county commission meeting. However, I have been invited, but I do have something else to do. So, if you have questions, Susan, would you like for people to get in touch with you or just email? Just do an email to get our information?
Well, what we're going to do, I think what at this point, what we're going to ask people to do is to just kind of keep their ears peeled, their eyes peeled, and their ears open, because we will be, if we are successful in convincing the commission to put this on the November ballot, then of course we're going to have to do a campaign to educate people.
Okay.
And so once that information is set and we know that we're moving forward on this,
Okay.
I'm sure it'll be covered by the local media
Yes.
because this is going to be a story that the local newspaper and TV hopefully pick up. That then there will be a way for people to learn more. We don't have a name for the campaign yet because
Okay.
until the county commission agrees that they're going to put it on the ballot, we don't have any. That's what's going to give us our traction. But in the meantime, people can contact the county commission and say, yes, we want you to put a referendum on the November ballot to repeal or to return to at-large districts for county commission seats.
Perfect. And I hope this promote your interest in getting out to vote. Okay? It is urgent.
Yes.
We shall vote November 5th.
Is it November 5th or
2024.
November 7th? I can't remember.
5th.
Okay.
2024.
Okay. Yeah.
It's important. Very important.
And, there is something else that I think people need to realize. If you have ever voted by mail, Back in the day, it used to be called absentee voting.
Yes.
More recently, over the last probably 10 years or so, we've tried to use the term vote by mail. And that's where the supervisor of elections mails you your ballot.
Yes.
And you have a return ballot. So you vote your ballot, you put it in the return envelope, you send it off, and you're done voting. And you get that ballot a month ahead of time.
Exactly.
So you've got a lot of time to see what's going to be considered, to do your research, and then get your vote in before Election Day. Unfortunately, the state legislature tightened the rules, restricted the rules on people who are registered, not just registered to vote, but registered to vote by mail. So if in past elections you've been voting by mail, you're probably accustomed to the way it was where you didn't have to renew that except every 4 years. Well, now, because of the state legislature, they want you to renew it every single year. So what you need to do is go to the Supervisor of Elections office. Their website is votealachua.com, or you can call them at 352-374-5252 and say, I want to renew my vote by mail. Or if you've never voted by mail and you would like to sign up, you can go to votealachua.com or that phone number, 352-374-5252, and tell them, I want to register to vote by mail. But it is important, and the nice thing about voting by mail is because you get your ballot, you don't have to think, where do I vote, when do I vote? All you need to do is just make sure you get that ballot marked according to the instructions they include, and then mailed back. And you don't even need a stamp because it's all postage paid.
All postage paid.
Yes.
Okay, and if you don't know who to vote for, my nieces and nephews always call me, Auntie who? I said, the most important thing, vote. I'm not going to tell you. You need to do your research. But they don't stop there. They call again.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are their
But
research.
I am. And that lets me know that they are interested
Yes,
in voting.
yes.
And I make sure they share or tell their friends. Tell your friends, your cousins, okay, to vote, to register and vote. And this year especially because we are going to lose our democracy. Did I say it right?
You
we
did.
don't want to. We don't want to. It's scary.
It is. It's very scary. It's very
Very
scary. This is an absolutely pivotal election year.
It
It's not
is.
just a presidential election year. This is going to decide whether
Women's-
we continue to move forward as a nation, or if things
Exactly.
come to a screeching halt.
Exactly. And women, oh my God, women rights, we got to protect our rights.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
The men have absolutely nothing to do with us, with the women. You don't tell us what to do. Our body, our personal, okay, personal bodies, okay? Please register to vote. It is important. If my mom was here, she would tell you, vote, baby, vote. And I remember my great-grandmother walked from Jackson, Mississippi, enslaved, born in 1826, died in 1926. But she was smart enough to know that the two things she wanted to do, learn to read and vote. Those were the two of the most important things that she carried with her when she died. She was not able to read, not taught to read, and she was not allowed to vote. And those are the two things she wanted to do. So every time I vote, I say to her, this is for you, Grandma. Okay? And I vote for her. When I got my education, I donated that. I dedicated that to my grandmother, her daughter, her oldest daughter. So that certificate is for my grandmother. She didn't get an education either. She was educated, self-taught by her husband, my grandfather. But as far as a degree, she had a degree in common sense, but she did not get that paper, that certificate from a college. And she wanted to make sure her daughter, which was the Rosewood school teacher, got an education, and Mom made sure her two daughters went to college and received an education. But voting is a priority in my family, and I'm just getting the message out. If you're there, you hear us pleading to you to vote. What
Yes.
would you like to add?
Well, first
The
I'd like to
importance-
say your mother is speaking you're speaking for your mother and your grandmother and for generations of women. And so I want to amplify that because I think it's really important because of the work that you're doing and the work that a lot of people are doing is because it's built upon that legacy. That legacy of we know what it's like to not control ourselves, be able to be allowed, not be allowed to have control over ourselves.
Exactly.
And so that is something that's going to be on the ballot. If people haven't heard, reproductive rights, abortion rights are going to be on our November ballots. The same thing with recreational marijuana. That's going to be on the ballot. So there are a lot of reasons why people should be motivated to vote, not the least of which is the fact that, there's a presidential election. But when you're talking about, your family legacy, my grandmother was a young woman in 1920 and was a suffragette.
Exactly.
She was one of, the many, many women back then who fought and marched for a woman's right to vote.
Exactly.
And when women don't vote, it flies in the face of all the work that our ancestors, that our predecessors went through back when it was not just not popular, but dangerous for women to take these activism roles. And so we have a responsibility to carry that forward and do this work because we can't rely on other people to do it for us.
Exactly, and it's still dangerous today.
Yes.
You have to be careful.
Yes.
And as far as being threatened, I have been. Am I afraid? Don't think so.
Yep. Yep.
If I am, I do it anyway. Okay.
That's right.
Say come. Okay. Because it's important
Yes.
for the next generation, our future, young ladies and men. And we appreciate the men that's fighting with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Because without them, we wouldn't have the courage or as much courage to go forth and do what we need to do for our next generation.
Yeah.
Would you like to add closing remarks?
No, I think that we've covered so much, and I'm just hoping that as this process of getting this on the referendum ballot in November, that as this moves forward, that we'll be able to revisit it again, and I can give future updates.
Perfect. Okay. I am continuously humbled, honored, and blessed to meet people daily and invite them to join in peace building, healing, and reconciliation through learning about the history of Rosewood. This will wrap up today's episode. I am Queen Lizzie. Until next time. Thank you.